Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. It's another D6 Wounds podcast, and I'm here with Mr. Mark Murfield
Evening all.
and special guest, Mr. Alex Warboss Wheatley.
Hello.
How are we doing, gentlemen?
Very roasting hot, but very good. Hence the attire for tonight. It's not usually this casual on a podcast, but I can't wear anything other than this.
It's another sweltering day, isn't it?
Mhm.
It's the recording on the hottest day, which I think we're doing well on.
So we're talking about the Thundercock GT, the second one, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Second one.
being held next month, 8th edition event. And I suppose the first thing I should say is, are there still some tickets available?
There are not. We've actually got a waiting list. So we've got a waiting list of 4 people. We sold out almost within 10 days of launching the tickets. Our first ticket sale was 3.5 minutes after they went live. We sold our first ticket and we sold out in 10 days and I've got a wait list. So we've still got people messaging me, not every week, but every other week saying, have we had any dropouts yet? I'm ready. I've got my list. I'm sorted. So yeah, really, really packed this year, which is super fun.
So how many of you capped it for the event?
30. So 30 for this event. But I think the problem this year was the venue because I'm holding it in Peterborough. There's 2 venues that I was in between, and one of them can only accommodate 15 people, and it's in the middle of a renovation, and it's a little bit kind of rushed with the deadline. So they've assured me in the future they can go more than that, but I've said let's keep it to 15 tables just for this first one.
And really, really healthy for the game, isn't it? Because there was kind of a retrenchment, wasn't there, of 8th edition players when Old World came out. Lots of people drifting across, and some people, drifted across, came back to 8. Other people just sort of dropped out altogether.
Yeah.
So the numbers dropped off, but then they've started to pick up. Our numbers for London Legends have held quite strong, and now yours,
Your numbers are always over 30, aren't they?
recent addition to the 8th Ed circuit.
Yeah, so there's 5 now big events throughout the year. I know Jim Allen used to run one event, but I think he's stepping away from it a bit. So Cardiff aim to do two. Thundercocks will try and aim to do two, and then you've got the Stoic London Legends in the middle of the year. So there shouldn't be more than sort of 2.5 months before you have an event in the UK, which I think is healthy. I think there's a gentle balance between you look at 40K, for example, they've got massive 60-man events every weekend. And I think that's quite tough in a hobby where there's only a limited amount of people to get the hall pass from the family to go to an event every weekend. Whereas 2 or 3 months apart, you've kind of got enough time that you can, do the dishes, look after the kids, and the brownie points to get to the event once every 3 months.
Yeah, you got to take a long run up sometimes, don't you?
Was
Yeah.
was Jim Allen the is it Squig
Squig
something?
Hopper, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Squig Hopper events. And he's run some 1 day events, and his 2 day event
Mm.
was fantastic. He's trying a lot of new things. I think he's got a couple of frustrations with the way that 8th is at the minute, and I think he's struggling to balance it. So I think he's trying to do some stuff where it's map some events where it's just on kill points, and some events where it's a random draw and you can't talk about the rankings to the end. So he's trying some more quirky stuff, which I love, but it massively suits 1 day events as opposed to like a 2 day event.
So before we get into the intricacies of the of Thundercock GT, and I want to get into talking about the compact and stuff. I was watching your first video on your new YouTube channel, Alex, Warboss Wheatley.
Yeah,
I'll put a link in the description for people to find it and check it out. But your first video on there, you're sort of talking about stepping back in time and talking about your story, your Warhammer story about how you got into the hobby and so on. And I thought it was really interesting, just seeing your journey and how you describe kind of the pinnacle of the hobby for you is actually the ninth age.
mm,
And I'm someone who didn't play the ninth age, and many people watching won't know what it is. So I thought maybe if we, or perhaps you could sort of tell that story a bit. I mean, obviously your personal story, people
yeah.
can go to your YouTube and see it, but what is the ninth age? Who played it, and where are those people now?
So it was a really interesting time. I as a person, and I'm working very hard on this now. I don't like change at all. I'm really abhorrent. I don't like new things at all. I'm stuck in my ways, which I think is why it's so good for me. So when my friend back in 2011 said, "Let's go into a Games Workshop," that was change, and I was like, "I don't want to do that." And then when we started playing in the league at Games Workshop, he said, "Let's go to this gaming club," and I said, "I don't. That's different. I don't want to do that." And it took me a while to get into the like explore new things part of the hobby, but partway through my enjoyment of it, I think it was the 2014 kind of era. I'm a little bit clumsy on the dates now, but the video will have the dates in has the dates in it. The Games Workshop started releasing the End Times as a chronicle, which was a fantastic story. And lore-wise, if you take it away from what it did to the game, it is a really interesting story. There's these amazing epic chronicles of Archaon bringing the end times to the people and the rallying realms of mortals coming together, and these incredible battles. The one that sticks out to me is Sigvald, the handsome son of Slanesh in like this divine beauty mirrored shield, gets into a conflict with Throg, the Troll King, and Throg has his magical warhammer, and they get into this duel, and he crosses Sigvald on the chin or something on the cheek, and he grazes him. And because it's a magical weapon, Sigvald can't heal from it, so his beauty is tarnished, and he loses his mind. He drops his shield and he pins Throg to the floor, and he's just like punching at like wet mush where a head should be, and he just loses his mind. And you read this book, you're like, this is incredible lore. Like, this is such a cool story. You're really learning about these characters, and it paints such an amazing picture. The power balance changed a bit with some units that came out. So you think of things like the Wrathmongers and the Berserkers for Warriors of Khorne, monstrous infantry, but not monstrous infantry. The stats kind of weren't that great. You look at Morghast on the flip side of that for Tomb King's Vampires, incredible units for their cost, great armor,
models.
hover, insane models as well. Then you come up with some of the end times magic, and it all gets really strong. And everyone in the community at the time was a bit like, this is really cool, but it's a little bit scary because everything's getting really strong all of a sudden. All these new units are coming out, and we're reaching kind of a fracture point. And they announced it. They said that this is the end. The end times have come. Archaon wins. He shatters the mortal realms, and that's it. And all of us in the hobby kind of were looking around like, well,
Yeah.
what
Game over.
what's that about? And for me, it was quite tough because this is 2 or 3 years into me getting into the hobby. So I've only just started getting good. I've only just started, coming top 5, top 10 at events, and it ends. And it's upsetting for a lot of people because it's a story they've grown up with through all the editions, and it felt like Games Workshop were kind of giving up on that part of the story, which was tough. At the same time, they launch Age of Sigmar, so they rebrand what they want their game style to look like, and they introduce the Stormcast Eternals and all the factions. In the first renditions of Age of Sigmar, they've got that one-page rule pack, which is all our rules are so simple; they're on one page. That was their gimmick,
down
wasn't
to
it?
the lady when you
If you have a bigger mustache than your opponent, you're playing Empire, you can reroll to charge, and if you can curse your opponent and you're a dwarf, you get all this janky stuff that just wasn't competitive at all. And a lot of the people in the scene, and I put myself in this bracket, are competitive people. I enjoy winning and I enjoy bettering myself, which is why rankings mean so much to me, because I'm constantly striving for something. And that actually much didn't scratch the itch because all my units kind of move in weird ways, and I need to grow a mustache now. And like, how does my wife play Empire? How does she grow a mustache?
And have you finally, after these years, slightly managed to get some growth?
I've almost got the mustache. I've been growing this since Age of Sigmar came out. So that was quite tough. And the running joke for a while in the last couple of 8th editions was, I remember a guy called Alex McGee who ran events down in Colchester. His signature move was, if you came last in an 8th edition event, instead of a wooden spoon, you got an Age of Sigmar model. And it was basically saying, this is not the game for you. Try this game. It's a little bit easier for you to kind of get your head around. And at that time, a fraction of the community, less than half, slightly over half, moved towards Games Workshop. So they're the people who are kind of diehard Games Workshop fans. They believe in what Games Workshop produced. They believe in Games Workshop as a business. They've got loyalty there. So they follow it into Age of Sigmar. Some more blindly with it's fine and, denying that it probably needed a bit of work. And I think what Age of Sigmar is now is better than it ever has been. It is a competitive game, but at the time it wasn't. And then another fraction that were kind of left behind that didn't really have anywhere to go because the rule that we follow, the game we enjoy, isn't being made anymore. It's not supported by Games Workshop, so we're kind of stuck. So a group of 3 or 4 European gentlemen from the European Team Championship get together, and they very quickly, in the space of 4 or 5 weeks, make the 9th Age. And the goal for the 9th Age is to be the successor to 8th edition. So its ethos is just to be what Games Workshop should have released if they were going to release the next edition of 8th edition. And I was with the Thundercock podcast at the time. I was with Jack, and he's got incredible connections, Jack Chapman, with like competitive community. and he got on the board of writing the rules and like looking over the rules. So he was able to get a lot of that information early. We did a lot of podcasts on it. And actually, for the first couple of editions, all it was 8th edition, but with all the FAQs kind of bolted in already. And all the things that you think it really should have been like this. And a lot of the house rules that you put into 8th edition at tournaments were just included. It just made sense, those kind of things, that became in there. So when it was like heals being infinitely high, that's not an 8th edition rule. Tournaments do that for fairness. 9th Age is like, we're writing it. We'll just say that's how it is. And then it's black and white, it's the rules, it is how it works then. And there was this wonderful period where the competitive people who were in 8th edition left and moved towards 9th Age, and the people who enjoyed Games Workshop moved towards Games Workshop. So the scene was incredibly competitive because all the people who were fluff gamers or more casual players had gone with Age of Sigmar. So the talent pool was incredibly condensed in 9th Age because it was all the people who really enjoyed winning and really enjoyed doing well. So even when you didn't place as well at events, you felt better because your path through to the final game was actually a really, really tough one. And the rules kind of kept developing, and they kept kind of doing little patch fixes, and they got a bigger community. These 3 or 4 Eastern European guys who started the rules got more people involved. The forums were creative. They had specific teams looking after different army books, and it changed quite quickly. The game within a couple of months, there was a new edition where they'd fix some more stuff, and they'd fix some more stuff. And I think the biggest thing that 9th Age authors were not scared of, but concerned about, was infringing with IP. Because Games Workshop is intellectual property, so Thorn is intellectual property of Games Workshop. There's no kind of getting around that. The names, characters, Throg, Sigvald, as we've mentioned, all the way down to Schwarzenhelm, the Empire guy, they're all IP. So they were concerned about infringement of that. So they had to make some changes to be similar but not the same, to get away from any issues that would have come up with that. So that meant that there was some changes that happened. The European Team Championships happened. So the ETC moved away from Age of Sigmar entirely and 8th edition and became fully 9th Age. And that was when I first cut my teeth on going to the European Team Championship, which is the easiest way I can equate it is the Olympics of fantasy tabletopping. It's just such an insane experience. And I really think if we can get more team events in the UK, if you listen to this, get to a team event, because the rush you get when you're playing for a team is like, it's a high I chase constantly, because you're not playing for you anymore. You're playing for the betterment of the team. So there are games when you're playing and you're in a tough matchup and your coach comes over to you and he says, what's your score like in this game? You're like, I don't know, it's a bit cagey. And he goes, don't worry, Mike on your team is up big, so you don't need to push anymore. You can take some really smart conservative decisions and you can pull your army back, and I don't need a 20-0 anymore. If I get a 10, we've hit our points. So that's where we are. Or the flip side of that, normally the conversation was someone on our team has really overextended. They've screwed it a little bit. We're down on points. We need everyone to be greedy. So all the players have then got to try and nibble away at the tiny, easy points they can get. And so that when I talk about the pinnacle of gaming, for me, playing in the European Team Championship was the pinnacle of gaming. I think it's the most competitive you can play in gaming. And the rush you get from playing against opponents from different countries, seeing the different armies, playing as part of this team, and you're not playing your own country, you're also abroad, which is amazing. Played in Salamanca, played in Athens.
Did you actually ever play for the English team?
I didn't play for the English team. Me and Jack for the very first year were conscripts for the team Bulgaria. I know zero Bulgarian lineage beyond Jack's, but each team is allowed 2 out of their 8 members to be not nationals of the country that they're representing, so like war dogs basically. And they had 2 players kind of drop out. They weren't kind of getting the numbers they wanted to. So me and Jack, I think, were like the last of their choices, because we weren't winning events at that point. I think we were kind of like the last of the choices at that point.
Scraping the barrel.
We had an amazing, but we had an amazing time, and that just lit a fire in me. I love that competitive scene. Because part of it is the matchmaking, where beforehand you look at all the opponents' lists, all 18 countries, 8 players lists, and you work out how good is my matchup against this opponent. And you have to work out whether it's a good match for you, a bad match for you, an indifferent matchup. And then pairings, you're playing this weird chess game where you're blind pairing against your opponent and you're trying to get the matchups you want. And sometimes the captain would look at it and be like, Alex, I'm feeding you a shitter here. Like, this game is not for you. Just get as many points as you can. If I'm playing all ethereal vampires and I'm pairing into wood elves, he's going, "You're having a really bad time, right? Just don't get tabled is kind of all I'm asking for you at this point." On the flip side, where you're the wood elf player, they go, "You've got to take every point you like, table this man, take everything you can from him." So that was quite interesting. And then the England were playing under the banner of the UK at the time, or England team, but there wasn't a Scotland team and there wasn't a Welsh team. So I incepted the Scottish team, and the Welsh team was incepted at the same time as well. And I captained the Scottish team, and I was invited back to the Scottish team for the second year as a player. I handed over to Felix Newman. But that was the time where I wasn't enjoying the game as much. And that was when I wanted to step away from it. And I think there was this golden age of Ninth Age where version 0.99, right before they officially released it to version 1, was where I think, and a lot of the community think, it was absolutely perfect because it was 8th edition with the FAQs. And all those units that were overcosted and didn't do what they wanted to were just brought in line fairly. So Minotaurs, as we were talking about earlier, Mark, reduced in points or given extra attacks. The Slaanesh Fiends and Demons were given extra abilities to make them competitive. And kind of everything felt like it was a really viable choice in one way or another. And it was just peak wargaming for me because everything felt really viable. You didn't look at a book and go, "Jabberslythe, like, what idiot's taking that?" You were like, "Oh, I understand why he's taking that." The laws were all different. But it still felt just like 8th edition. It was just more competitive. But the problem is the changes kind of kept coming, and they just kept the changes kept evolving and evolving and evolving. And when you've got a lot of people working on the team, the squeaky wheel gets the oil in a lot of cases. So this would change and this would change and this would change. And I remember there was an event I played in Surrey, and I'd seen a bit of a niche in the book where you could take Goblin Squigs in this edition had fly effectively or hover. They rolled 3d6 and they flew that amount of inches basically, which was quite cool. And there was a phrasing in there that said that you could attach a character to a unit if he was on a squig hopper, another one of these squigs basically. But it didn't limit it to one. You could have as many as you wanted to in it. So I built a list with 5 squig heroes, all on squig hoppers, in a unit of 20 of them that just flew around the board 3d6 inches. They had the Madres 3, they had the banner of anti-shooting, and they jumped around the board. It was amazing. It was so much fun. I really found like a pocket that was quite a cool list in this. I came second at that event. I needed an Italian player on table 2 to not get 20-0'd. If he got 19'd, I'd won the event. And he fucking 20-0'd, didn't he? Came second. Anyway, that aside, a guy who was on the 9th Age team came to me at that point and he went, "Really cool list, really love it. I don't expect you'll see it again though." And I was like, "I don't really understand what you mean by that." Within a fortnight, the rules had changed and it wasn't allowed anymore. And not the comp pack, the rules for the game had changed and that unit wasn't allowed. And that was when I got a bit, well, this feels very reactive now. And everything kind of got down to being weapon skill 3, strength 3, toughness 3, leadership 7, a little bit. And everything just felt they balanced it almost to boredom, where suddenly
that's always the tension, isn't it, between letting the competitive crowd take the reins on a game. It just becomes too balanced, right? And then the other side of it is, if it's totally in the hands of Games Workshop, it becomes totally fluffy and unbalanced because they're not bothered about having a tournament game, you know?
Yeah, and that was the problem. It just, for me at least, it just became very stale. Every unit could kind of do the same thing. Magic was toned back, so it was maybe one spell you could do a turn, and they weren't any big like test or die spells. Suddenly it became a bit like 40k, where you couldn't always wound people if there was strength and toughness. And
was this before they started messing around with the unit stats in terms of, I can't remember what it was. It was something like they got rid of toughness and strength and did something else.
During that change was when I left, when they started saying, actually, for this new version, we're getting away from that. We've got like the fortitude of a unit, and we've got the tenacity of a unit, and this unit's gumption ranking. And it was a bit like, I don't quite understand where this is going. It's balancing itself kind of to boredom. So I was invited back to the Scotland DTC the second time around. And I very politely declined and said that's fine. I've made something cool because you guys are going, but this is not for me. But I think if you ask people who played 9th edition, you ask them what the best edition was in 9th edition, they'll all say version 0.99 or version 1, which was the very last before it changed, unfortunately.
So I think my my bit on Ninth Age, I hardly played it at all, maybe a game or something, but it was more following it, and I liked what they were doing to start with because, as you were saying, it was very similar. I think I was following Once Bitten 360,
Yeah,
because he
great
was
YouTuber.
he was massively into it, and it looked really good. It was all exciting, but my issue as a casual gamer was the changes were too fast, so you just couldn't keep up with it.
And that's not even as a casual gamer. Competitive gamers are really struggling with that as well because a lot of it is you look at like the data from the last event and you go, well, how does my list now factor in with that data? And suddenly it's all irrelevant. And actually, it doesn't matter about last tournament's event because the units have all changed. So you can't use that as a fair metric. And when you're getting Bretonian lists that are most powerful when they don't have any knights in them, it all feels a little bit like we've strayed too far away from the light of what 8th edition
That
was.
sounds like old
So
world at the
where
moment.
are the ninth ed players now? Because it's funny when you talk about that rush, right, of playing, international team Warhammer. That's going on right now with Warhammer the Old World, right? And
It is.
that in full swing, and I always think to myself, I mean, I suppose a lot of the people playing Warhammer the Old World, people come from different game systems before. A few of them have come from Ninth Age and are playing Old World now. Um, but a lot of people, played sixth and seventh, or whatever. It tends to be a younger crowd slightly. Um, and I think Old World, a bit less so than eighth and ninth, it's not as competitively written. Like there's a lot of sort of grey areas in the rules. There's a lot of how can I put it? There's
It's a lot more
a
intense
lot of
than
holes. There's a few gaps. It's not airtight, right? In the if you play it at a
Yeah.
very competitive level, you're going to get into arguments because it isn't designed to be the sort of game where you can just roll a dice and see who's won it. There's a bit of, you
Yeah.
need more of a gentleman's agreement to play the game.
Yeah. I think
I'll
the
give
thing
you
is,
an example, just so people sort of know what I'm on about. So in eighth, right, a unit breaks from combat. You They roll their flee roll. You roll your pursue roll. If you beat them on the dice, the unit's destroyed. Yeah, right. Old world is not like that. So you roll your flee roll, and I roll my pursue roll. But then you pivot the units. You move them on the table, and you've got to see whether your unit actually contacts their unit. And if you flee into terrain, you've got to flee around the terrain, and it's really messy. And it's like such a critical part of the game where you're finding out whether a unit is totally destroyed or not. And it's really like, do I quite contact you with that 5 inches? Are you moving around this way, or how are you pivoting? And it's like, it's just going to lead to arguments, if you play it, in my opinion, if you play that at a super competitive
yeah,
level, it's not going to work.
I think the thing is with rule packs and editions like that is they need to be almost like released to competitive players first of all to kind of find where the leaks are. I want to say it was Jeff Bezos. It might have been someone else who said you hire a lazy person to do a job because they find the path of least resistance to they find the laziest way to finish the problem. And I think a lot of that is with the same with games. If you give someone a rule book and they're competitive in nature, they will find the holes in it straight away. The compacts for events are a great example. I released this pack for the Thundercock event, the winter one, and I've been through it with a fine tooth comb. I've got some of the other jabroni generals to go through it and just make sure they'd sorted everything. Not only did I leave dwarves out the first time I sent the pack out on their comp, but the relentless word, I hadn't parentheses in there that they should be non-flyers with the relentless rule. So relentless is you can triple march, and gyrocopters have the relentless rule. So my rules as written were gyrocopters could move 30 inches, which is not what I intended at all.
Yeah.
But it took almost no time at all for people with a competitive nature to see the hole and try and exploit it. Chaos marks are another one. We were talking before the podcast started about how the events say the units that can't have marks, and the implication of that is every other unit can have a mark. So units that weren't intended to have marks in the first place, like Cygors and Giants and well, I forget the combat
Cool.
beastman character,
Yeah,
Gorgon.
Gorgon.
Suddenly they can take chaos marks, and Mark and Nurgle is +1 toughness. So suddenly they're toughness 7. And actually, if you don't look for it, you won't find it. But you need competitive people to find the hole and say this needs patching, because I'm confident at the next Thundercock event and at the next London event at least, Giants won't be allowed marks. Cygors won't be allowed marks in chaos. And gyrocopters will not be allowed to trigger one.
I mean, it's
But
a long way
without these,
away. We'll probably forget by then. Yeah.
but until competitive people kind of find that hole and to like exploit it's there. And if Games Workshop don't have a competitive mind, they're not seeing these holes and they're just releasing it with the holes kind of in the pack. If that makes sense.
So where are the ninth age players now? I guess what I'm trying to say is, are
Where do
there
they all
people
go?
who want to play competitive Warhammer but don't see the game there yet, who are just not playing? Or...
So the fleeting few that I've spoken to for this podcast, I did a quick check on 15, 20 ninth ages that I knew at the time.
Okay.
And the vast majority of them play an entirely new game system now, either non-game workshop related or something else that's Age of Sigmar and then into 40k as a game afterwards. A lot of them play Song of Ice and Fire. A lot of them play smaller games like that, but they don't entertain that anymore. They found the competitive itch somewhere else. 40k is a massive one. Jack Chapman, as an example, fell hard into 40k and he loves it there. He's found a real community there. He's got the competitive itch that he wants. It's a Games Workshop sponsored game. It's written to be a bit more competitive than I think the old world is, and certainly more than Age of Sigmar is. As far as I'm aware, none of the ninth age players, well, none of the ones I tracked went to Age of Sigmar. So they all kind of stood quite stoic on that's not the game I'm going back to. Some of them are tentatively dipping their toe back into the old world because that's the Games Workshop sponsored, similar to 8th edition, square bases, rank and file, that sort of thing is what they're looking for. But the vast majority found new game systems. And I think the damage was done at that point that there are some that still play 9th edition. There is a very small community of people who are still playing 9th age, but at that point, I think it's so small. At one event, if you talk loudly enough, you could get a rule pack changed. So I think that it's just that almost it's balanced itself into almost like a hobby game where the same 50, 60 people play it, and that's kind of it now. And they all kind of co-write the rules, and it's gone like that. So the ones I checked up on, 40k. Other small games like Song of Ice and Fire, Flames of War was another one. A couple of them played.
Even go on
And
to
then
Kings
40k.
of War.
I didn't see Kings of War. I wouldn't be surprised if they went anywhere. I think what people didn't like about Age of Sigmar was the game. The game just wasn't a competitive game to play.
Didn't have points at the start.
It didn't have standard rules. It wasn't a competitive game. And what Ninth Age did was it, like I said, balanced it to boredom. The constant changes were too much to keep up with. So if you didn't like games that weren't competitive and you didn't like changes constantly, you weren't going to stay with Ninth Age. A lot of other game systems offer those two things because I don't think those are two hard things to offer a community of gamers. Not to change the rules every 10 minutes and to be able to be competitive, I think are the fundamentals of playing a game, really, aren't they?
Did you go to any of the big 8th Ed GTs before the end times?
I was not even close to good enough to get to 8 GTs at that time. I was middle of the table on a good day when I was in 8. My first events, I remember running like 18 Khorne warriors with halberds in a little unit, and I was like, these guys are so good because they have halberds. And then 18 warriors of Nurgle being like, these guys are really good because they're -1 to hit. And looking back on it now, that's a terrible core selection for warriors of Chaos. That's not even remotely competitive. So I just learned a lot as a player, and I changed it since then. So I got better and better. Ninth Age was when I was using the knowledge and the skills in gaming I'd learned in 8th to be good at 9th. And luckily, like riding a bike, none of them left me. So when in 2022, when we started wargaming again with 8th edition, I think it was Luke who incepted the Cardiff Crusade 2021, 2022. He started 8th edition tournaments kind of up and running again. And that was when there was a bit more, there were a couple in Wandsworth that were happening, and then London Legends started, and that's kind of when it kept coming up. A lot of the skills that you'd learned, you didn't forget. And it was a really nice transition. I remember the messages of the guys I used to play 8th edition kind of come back in because you talk once a month as friends to say like, how's life, wife and kids, good at that. When they started being about, do you think I should take this unit? And you go into this event, that kind of rush of it's happening again was really nice to be like, there's an event in, next month. Like, do you think we can go? And it was like, oh, I'm going to take Dark Elves. And it was like, oh, what are you going to take? Like that rush of talking about lists and like what works and what doesn't work. Practice games was just amazing. And I love the community for that. I love the number of WhatsApp groups there are that are all talking about this and events coming up. I love the sense of community. I love 8th edition because it's a competitive game and I'm good at it, but I like the community and the sense of passion that everyone has for the game more, which is nice.
And the
So how do you feel that the scene has changed then, since because obviously you're coming from what I would say quite a competitive mindset. I'm semi-competitive, but less so than you, and I'm sure Mark won't mind me saying even less than both of us.
Yep.
And so, do you think that the eighth ed scene now, on average, is much less competitive than what you've come from?
I think the balance of competitive players has always stayed the same. I think if you go with maybe the top 60% are competitive players and the bottom 40 probably a little bit more casual gamers. I think that percentage didn't change from when it was in its heyday to now. Just the number of people in each one of those brackets changed. We're a smaller community now, but I think it's almost like the oil on top of the water. We've all kind of found our place in knowing if you were competitive before, you're kind of competitive again in this edition. And I think a lot more people fall into your bracket, Simon, where they're kind of semi-competitive or they want to do better. And actually, it's the learning experience that I went through in 2012 of, wow, this unit is dog shit. I'm getting my teeth. What's a better way of running this list? And I think in 2022, one of the remarks we kept seeing was people would take like 35 witch elves and a cauldron of blood in the middle and 3 witch characters and not Morathi, the other one, the blender witch elf Hellebron, and that unit. They take this giant unit, they'd be like, no one's fucking killing this unit. And it would get fed 2 units of dogs, a unit of Marauder Horsemen, and they'd lose the game 14-6 and be like, I don't understand what happened. I've got 1,400 points in this unit. How did I lose the game? And I think there was a real start in that coming back to it. People were like, that I'm not winning games anymore. Like, I'm building this really cool unit. It's not winning. And I think through that evolution of people who are in your boat, Simon, have gone, that obviously doesn't work. How do I play for the meta that exists at the minute? How do I beat the list that I'm seeing at the minute? And then the compacts change that slightly, and suddenly people understand, what chaffing is, and they understand how to screen their units, and they understand how to like protect their units, and suddenly then the opponents get a bit better. And I want everyone to be in your bracket, Simon, everyone to be competitive, and I want every game to be a tough game. I don't like it when you play against someone and they've got a very fluffy list and they haven't taken an optimal choice, and I go, like we talked about earlier, it's going to be there'll be a tough point in the middle where I'm suddenly winning the game, and then it'll be really relaxing afterwards. But I think that I want more people to be competitive because it breeds better players. Like if you want to be better and you're a better opponent for me, you're a better opponent for your people, you're a better player. And I think more competitive people is only ever good for the scene.
So how many armies do you normally, or do you use? Do you I know you've got access to a 3D printer, but which isn't yours, of course.
No.
Lovely Harry. And, but the reason I ask is, I mean, I've got a lot, should we say, and so I chop and change a lot. So I know lots of armies, and I know them reasonably well, but I don't necessarily play them all really well because I switch around, and then I get gravitated towards taking the worst army to see how good I can do with it.
Which I think is a fantastic goal to have, to be like, how can I take this non-competitive army and be the best version of me with it? Because that in itself for me is competition. And that's kind of why I rebuilt the rankings from what they were and designed rankings for 8th edition. Because if you're not fighting for a podium, a lot of the events felt a bit like, I don't really know what I'm doing here. Like, I had fun, I came 15th, like, that was cool. But actually, if you're looking at your progress and you can say, actually, my 15th has improved my overall score, that I'm a better player on the rankings because I did better at this event. Next event, I don't need to come first. If I come 12th, I'll get even higher on the rankings. How do I just get 2 more points or 3 more points higher? So players like you, Mark, I think the rankings is kind of what I designed it for, because we have a cream on the top of our 8th edition where we've got 10 players that I think are very good.
Yeah.
And then we've got a lot of players underneath who are good, and then we've got the casual players underneath it. And if you're in the good bracket, it must be demoralizing to see the same names rotate first, second, third over and over again. But if you can fight to be the best in race, high elf, for example, in the UK, and not even the UK, because we've got international rankings on there. We've got a load of Swedish and German events on there. To say I'm the best high elf player out of all 8th edition events in the past 2 years, that's a hell of an accolade to have. You might not have won any events, but there's a lot of pride in that's who I am and that's what I've done.
Especially if you're against, say, another high elf player and the two of you think you're both the best.
as is the high elf way.
Yeah.
So to circle back to your question, I think that there's 3 or 4 armies that I'll play a lot that I enjoy the play style of. And I think most people have 1 or 2 armies that they play from. My advice, I think, is you need to be able to know what all armies can do, not intimately, but you need to know roughly what their game plan is. Because if you understand what they're trying to achieve, what their win condition is, you can understand how best to not let that happen. So if I'm playing, let's take Mike Sylvester's Fast Cav Dark Elf list as an example. He's got lots of Dark Riders in core, lots of not Witch Elves, Warlocks on Fast Cav, lots of flyers, very mobile list, very like poke with the chip damage. My game plan shouldn't be I want to fight all those units, I want to break them all in combat. I need to understand what his win condition is so I can best mitigate it or try and drive towards my win condition. So I think you need to know one or two armies very well, which are the armies you play, and every other army you kind of need to know just enough to be like, what are you trying to achieve this game, and how can I stop you achieving that as much as possible?
Yeah, and you need an answer to the avoidance armies, like you say.
Yeah, and that's something that we started doing maybe 18 months ago. Me and the other Jabroni generals wrote down a list of the things that are at events that are tough to deal with. So a list that is entirely monsters is on this list. The Ban of the World Dragon, as much hate as it gets, is on the list. Mike's list is on the list. And when you're writing your army to take to an event, you go down the checklist from top to bottom and go, do I have an answer for this problem? And if I don't have an answer for the problem, I shouldn't really be taking this list. Because when I find that opponent, if I play Owen Williams, who's running 9 monsters, if I don't have a way to deal with monsters, I'm kind of screwed that game. So at least beforehand, I need to have the foresight to think, okay, what do I need to do in that? What's my win condition in that eventuality? And I think that mindset is incredible outside of Warhammer as well. That cognitive problem solving, I think, is just a really good skill to have in life. I do it for work. I do a lot of data analysis for work. And I think that understanding how to best every situation, I think, is quite interesting. Well, at least for me, I think it's really interesting. So when someone plays a list and they're like, oh, I've got the 40 Witch Elves and whatever, I go, well, how do I beat this then? Because I'm not fighting them in combat. That's Jack. How do I beat this list then? And you work out how you get around it.
What are you talking about? I'd chuck my 60 gore into that just to see what would happen. Almost got it. So what's your favorite army to play, and what's your favorite in terms of what you own in terms of models and look?
So what's my favorite army to play against? My favorite army to play with?
The favorite army you play with.
So I've really taken a liking to Skaven recently. I bought them to the last London Legends. I bought them to the Cardiff before that. They're getting painted at the minute. Otherwise, I'd show them off on my glamorous bookshelf. But they have a lot of interesting mechanics, and they break a lot of the way that rules are meant to work. And I think that they have quite a uniqueness where they're unstable and it's a bit luck based, but it's not quite as luck based as when you play Orcs and Goblins and you got to worry about animosity and all this other random stuff. It's like chaos, but it's like controlled chaos. It's like, oh, my Doom Wheel failed its leadership test. It shot my own Hell Pit and killed it dead. Nice. Didn't want that to happen, but controlled chaos. And I think that there's a little bit of that. I think your skill takes you so far in a game, and after that it is just luck. And I've always said it's better to be lucky than good. So I take armies where there's a little bit of spike in the luck power. So when you fire the Warp Lightning Cannon and you roll the 10 on the artillery dice and it's the template straight 10 multi-wounds D6, that's cool. Because you hit someone with that really stings. But you need to be lucky to get it. So I like armies that reward that thinking, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's and they are currently my favorite army, like physically to play to look good as well. I really like ogres. I've got a really nice ogre army where they're all orc conversions, they're all tribal orcs. And that's really fun because I think ogres as models are really good to customize. Every one of them so big and chunky that you can convert a model and they're all kind of standout pieces, so they all look quite nice on the battlefield. And I think that they're quite cool because they're a very low model count. Every model kind of looks like its own character. Their rules are pretty straightforward. They don't have a lot of shooting. They like getting into combat, and they're all kind of the same stats. So if you want a pretty brainless game, pushing them forward and being like, did I roll 8 on my leadership check? Yes. Hooray. Am I in combat? Even better. And that's kind of all you need to worry about, really, with them.
Nice.
So let's talk about compacts. So for Thundercock, you've decided to write a totally new compact, right?
Yeah. So it's entirely different to what's currently out there, but not entirely different to what there was in the heyday of 8th edition. So because I had the advantage of being around in that edition, there were 3 or 4 different styles of compact around at that time. And I think when 8th was being reborn and Triple Crown kind of took their compact, all the current compacts have taken inspiration from the Triple Crown compact, and it's become almost the tree of life that we all draw down from.
Yeah.
And I like that style of compact. I think it's nice. I think the problem or
Well, sorry, just to interrupt you for a second. Let's just break it
yeah.
down for people who might not understand what we're talking about.
Oh, sure.
So for London Legends, we're kind of like the successor in a way to the Triple Crown compacts, where they've got a tally comp, right? So there's pluses for unit choices, which are like soft, and then there's minuses for unit choices, which are the hard choices, yeah. And obviously there's pros and cons to every type of compact, and it does change the meta somewhat, because there'll be some pluses that you take that you wouldn't normally put in your list, but you're taking it because it's giving you a plus to your overall score. And then there's some minuses which you would take more of, but then you decide to take less because obviously it's subtracting from your score. But yours has a different take on it.
Yeah. So the tally comp strengths are, it gives an imperial number at the end on how strong a unit is. And it says if you want to take these less competitive choices, you can take the bad stuff if you want, but you're going to need to take some of the less competitive stuff to kind of balance the scale out a little bit. And I think I think if you're taking competitive choice, you should own the fact you took something competitive. And I shouldn't take something that is not very good to buy the thing I did take that was quite good. There was an edition, I think, the very first set of London Legends that came out, where chariot mounted characters is a +1 soft point, and the Zinch burning chariot, the rare one, is also a soft point, and Highlander for demons was 2 soft points. So if I took one hero character on a chariot and no duplicates, I got Kairos for free. And that felt quite scary to be able to say I could just have him for free, because I still get 1 Skull Cannon, I still get a unit Beast and Nurgle, I still get a unit of Plague Drones, I still get the Plague Bearers, I get all the cool stuff, but because I haven't duplicated anything, I get a free Kairos, and that feels unfair to me that I've done that, because that's not how I've taken something very competitive. I feel I should pay the tax for something quite competitive, but at the same time, it encourages choices that you wouldn't normally take, which suddenly are seeing the meta that we've never seen before. So all these soft choices that were plus choices, people take and they go, actually, this is quite a cool unit. Like 28 Noblar with Trappers is actually a pretty cool unit. Like this might make the roster more often than not, and it brings some balance into the game. What I've done is I've taken an older version of something called a traffic light comp, where a bucket of choices per army is listed in the red bucket, which is a very competitive choice. Some stuff is listed in the amber bucket, which is kind of a mid-level competitive choice. And then there's a green bucket, which is the lowest level, but still quite competitive as a choice. And the rules are simple. Everyone starts at +10, and you can take 1 red choice, you can take 2 amber choices, and you can take 3 green choices, and you'll stay at +10. And providing you stick within those parameters, you're fine. If you want to take an additional red choice, you can take 1 more from each category than you're allowed. So you can take 3 amber if you really want, or 4 green if you really want. But each one reduces your +10 comp score accordingly. So if I take 2 red choices, I lose 5. So I'm only at +5 list. And if I take 2 red, 3 amber, and 4 green, I'm at 0 comp list, basically. And the idea was to say that means there are lists you cannot take. So it is impossible for you to take 3 reds choices. So 50% Lords and Heroes is a red choice, for example. Kairos Fate Weaver is a red, for an example, and so is Epidemus. I can't have those 3 things in my list. I'm not allowed to. I deem, or the compact deems that list too competitive to play, and that's not allowed. So you need to work on it differently, basically.
And then it totally says you can't have stuff, and I like that.
And I think that the difficulty is normally never the red choices. It's normally the amber choices, where people have got 2 or 3 amber choices and they go, I really need that 4th one. Like, how do I make this happen? Can I pay all my greens for 1 amber, or I'll count this amber as a red, just please? And I think that's the balance. Things like putting a Dispel Scroll in green means everyone basically starts with a green down. And putting Standard Discipline there means a lot of armies start with a second green down. And actually, it's the balancing act of what can I take to get the score. And then you incentivize the +10. So in the Thundercock event, if your comp score is equal to or higher than your opponent's, you get an extra +1 to decide who goes first. You get to pick your deployment side. And once per game, you get the equivalent of a Kairos reroll. Once per game, you can pick up any D6 you like and just reroll it, because your comp score is better than your opponent's. So that encourages you to really want to try and take a 10 if possible, or to at least not take a 5 to try and get maybe a 7 or an 8 out of the comp pack and take maybe just 1 extra orange. And the last event we had, had almost resounding success where we had maybe 5 lists that weren't +10. Painful to me that a +5 won the event because that wasn't the point. But we had almost entirely +10 lists. There were a couple of plus points, but the lists all felt like they were on a level playing field and all felt quite fair. The difficulty from my end is how do I put stuff into certain brackets? What's a red choice? What's an orange choice? What's a green choice? Because I don't have the same flexibility that your comp has, where you can adjust something by either +1 or +2, or let's make Kairos actually -5 because that's really competitive. Once he's in red, I've got nowhere else to go. So I've got some real hard stops. And in your comp pack, there's no, which is really good for Warhammer, I think. If I want to take Epidemus Kairos 50% Lords and Heroes, in your comp I can. I'll be -20, but I can take it and I can play my army. And that's another benefit I think that Tally comp has over Traffic Light comp. So I don't think any of them are perfect.
Just correct you on one thing. You can't take 50% Lords and Heroes in a
Yeah,
but you can. You're right. You could take a very low minus and have a really filthy list. And I like that about the Traffic Light, where there's a hard cap on what you can take. However, because there's no pluses for soft choices, it doesn't that mean that you're less likely to see Dwarf Slayers or Azag the Slaughterer or whatever?
You are 100% less likely. And that's something we saw. We look over the stats of the compact. None of those soft choices that people were kind of encouraged to take before got taken, which I think is not ideal. I think that all it created really was a hole of points where they couldn't put more amber choices or red choices. So they put it with what would have been a green choice. So they put it with the next competitive thing. But there was very clearly a bucket of 10% of every army that just wasn't ever taken. So you're right, Dwarf Slayers, for example, were just not taken because I'm not incentivized the plus point. They're not actually that good. Why am I taking them? There's no carrot.
But it did offer something different to the other compacts which were out there at the time, and it meant that you weren't facing the utter filth from each list. So it although you weren't getting the really rubbish stuff, you weren't getting all of the best stuff as well. So
and my ethos was I want people, like I said at the beginning, I want people to be better at the game than they were before. So having a -20 list is not fun for your opponents to play against. And sometimes you don't learn a lot from the game either. But if there is a cap to how competitive a list can be, I feel like there's always a dog in the fight, and like it gives you a bit more incentive to kind of get better at it. And it also means I'm not rewarding you for taking a soft choice. It's a tournament. It's a GT. It's not designed for you to take a soft choice. I want you to take a competitive list. I'm not going to reward you taking Asgard the Slaughterer or Dwarf Slayers. You need to take good things because your opponents aren't going to be taking soft choices either. And I think that is what I'm trying to encourage, at least at my event, is that. And Mark, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think it's good that there's just variety. I think if you guys, if myself, if Cardiff all do a variant of the Triple Crown list and we all change little stuff, it kind of gets lost in the wash a little bit. So I think it's important that whatever I was doing for my comp pack, it was just not Triple Crown comp. It was not a tally comp, sorry. It was something other than that. The other version of the comp is Swedish comp, where you need a maths degree to work out what points are what, because you end up with a score that's like 140 something. You need to divide by every banner, and
you could only have it between this and this. And but I mean, Triple Crown was basically that, but a much simplified version.
Right. Yeah. And I know there are people out there that disagree with me. I think no comp is not the answer. So I don't ever think there's a scenario where no comp is the answer. I think there has to be checks and balances in our edition. It's freaking like 15, 20 years old. It needs some checks and balances in place to keep it where it should be. I think no comp is never the answer. And I think what we're trying to do with Tally comp and with Traffic Light comp is to try and bring it so there's variety between no comp, basically.
Well, I think Aether's in a really good place generally because it doesn't look like there's some sort of final meta that's emerged. Even after all this time, you still see good variations within the factions as well as between the factions, if that makes sense.
And I think the fantastic part about that is the hard work that you guys at London Legends, that Adam Bassett's doing at Cardiff do, to change the compact regularly and listen to what the game is doing. You offer enough change for there to be enforced variety, but not detrimental changes where it's mirroring what Ninth Age is, and the events aren't enjoyable because everything's changing. Suddenly changing the way that scoring works actually is really big, because in the last London, the one before London, providing you weren't a flyer, you could score. So monsters could score. So suddenly that opened up a whole new style of list writing. The old list wasn't as viable anymore. And in your list, when you're saying actually, now we're not saying 50% Lords and Heroes, actually that changes things again slightly. So I think the nuance of keeping the meta alive and interesting is in the fact that we as a collective keep changing the compact ever so slightly to encourage different things. I've brought fortitude into my compact, which is a metric you get points against by how many banners you have left alive at the end of the game, and if you can break your opponent's fortitude. If I don't include that, I will see less banners on the battlefield. So people, when they're writing their lists, are incentivized to not write their normal list, to try and put banners in there so they can achieve fortitude. When Cardiff took banners out as a scoring requirement, everyone dropped their banners, and suddenly you've got all these surplus points to spend, and you don't need them anymore, so you're buying other things, and the list rewrites itself kind of over and over again. And I think that's what keeps it really interesting, is these compacts keep changing what you're allowed to take and what you're encouraged to take.
And you've got giants, right? Everyone's taking a giant.
Everyone gets a free giant. Yeah.
So
there are a couple of key. I think it was almost in mourning of the fact that there weren't soft choices for anyone, because giants, I think, are incredibly cool. They're incredibly unique. Every army that can take a giant, it's a soft point. It's not a very good choice. And I think there are a couple of things I wanted to change. Tally comp was one of them. Fortitude was another one of the key changing parts in it. The way scoring works, I wanted to change. So your objective doesn't eat into your 20-0 score anymore. So it's not 14-6 and I got objective for 17. Actually, it's 14-6. Did I get my mission? Yes. Did you get your mission? Yes. We both get points for it. Right. Because the missions are now, they're secret missions. So you have a pack of 8 cards which have a secret mission. Is this kill your opponent's general? Is it breakthrough? Is it have more fortitude or not? At the beginning of the game, you pick your secret mission and your opponent picks their secret mission, and you can both get your missions that game. Like you can both, it shouldn't be, in my opinion, there's one objective to hold the pennies across the map, and if you get it, your opponent doesn't. Because in real life, you're not working towards necessarily holding the pennies. You're trying to achieve something different.
I love the secret missions because I used to love the American one called Brawler Bash. And that always used to have the cards which you'd get, and I think I think it was like 6, and the 7th one was the lucky re-roll, equivalent of what you got for the fortitude.
Absolute inspiration that I took from Brawler Bash, because our 8th secret mission is double agent, which is if your opponent got their secret mission, you get yours. So there's a mission you can put down, which is actually, I don't need to do anything in this game. I need my opponent to think I'm trying to get into his deployment zone or kill a general, but actually I win if he wins his mission. And that I wanted to change, because I think that it's frustrating when you're in a game and you're winning 14-6, for example, and you've got a massive point lead in your opponent, but they've got 1 or 2 scoring units more than you in key areas, and suddenly it's 11-9, and you've lost 3 points and they've gained 3 points through actually something that probably didn't feel very fair that we were trying to get for points. Whereas if I have my objective and I know it's different to yours, in some degrees, I'm kind of letting you have yours. If you're trying to get into my deployment zone, I'm trying to kill your general. Once your general's dead, you can have as many banners in my deployment zone as I want. Like, fill your boots. I've done my mission. You're getting yours. The score's 14-6 as an example. I get 3 more for 17. You get 3 more for 9, and we're all higher score first bit. And the final change was giants, which is giants offer fortitude. They offer no combat points when killed. So they are a completely free unit. I wanted people to have a unit that if it died in combat, it was a glorious Valhalla-worthy death, and it was not this cagey piece they needed to play around. It's free. It offers no points when it dies. Just push it forward. Who cares? Like, what's it? It's designed for you to get stuck in.
Oh, I was going to say, now I'm sure, and I'm going to say this, that you got inspiration because in, I think, 2 London Legend packs ago, I added giants to every single one as a soft comp, but nobody took it, so you forced it.
And I think mandating it is also to say this is not an optional. You are taking a giant and you are going to play with them every game. I think was also quite fun seeing what people did with them. You had some players who just had them stand by their war machines and just wait by their war machines, waiting for someone to come and harass them, which is fine. Like, that's how they're using it. Most games, the giants end up just running towards each other, and it became whose giant wins the giant. I was going to say,
I think every game I played, it was a giant off. It was brilliant.
You deploy your giant, they deploy theirs, and you kind of giants, and you both just run at each other. And go, yeah, yellow ball, I win. Yeah. So that was designed for you to still have like something to do, I guess. Like, I like the idea of you having fun models. It also helped support another change I wanted, which was best painted, because we have some incredible painters in the scene at the minute. So Luke, who's usually on this call, phenomenal armies, like the award-winning armies he's got. We've got people like, Lewis Flanders. We've got Michael Duff. We've got some amazing painters that produce some incredible quality armies. and I cannot paint for toffee. I pay people to paint my armies for me, and they're not as good as these elite level painters. So if I'm new to the hobby or in quite a small hobby, for me to paint my army and to compete with the juggernauts of your Luke Black Seals, I'm never winning that event. Like respectfully, I'm just not winning it. And London Legends have really put a nice spin on that, which is best theme, which isn't best painted. It's like, what story does your army tell? Which tries to get the underdog who isn't the best painted, but has the best like spirit of the list and like theme and like story they're telling to be in the game, which I think is a fantastic change. So the reason we brought the Giants in, or the alternative reason was that was the only model you were allowed to put forth for best painted. So you can have Luke's army. I'm not ragging on him on purpose. He's just got a very beautiful army. All his painting, it's not worth anything. I don't want to see it. I want to see one giant. How cool can you make a giant? In 2 month lead up, how cool can you make a giant look? And some of the giants we had there were sensational. They're all on the Facebook page. I'll send you the link to put in the description. Have a look at the photos. They're sensational. Adam Bassett had this undead Bretonian knight with like the shield on him and stuff.
Quality.
There was the Avatar of Cain was one of them. Jonathan Gardner, I think, had a Phoenix as one of
Who did the Thundercock?
Yeah, Jamie Bradbury did a Thundercock. Wow. The logo, a giant chicken with a lightning bolt in its hand. Harry Lacey had this incredible Chaos Dwarf with like this giant juggernaut helmet on. Some people really took inspiration on that. It was incredible, the giants that were painted. But because I'm only being compared against one model, I can really take some time to make my model look quite cool. And I can really feel like I've got a chance at winning this because I've got a really cool model and it's just one model I'm being compared against, and you can put a bit more dedication into it, which meant that the best painted award for the people who are very good at painting still have the same advantage they have. They can still edge, highlight, and I don't know the fancy terms, brush good on their giants to make them look amazing. But if you're not a very good painter, but you've got a really snazzy idea, like Jamie's Thundercock, you can still like compete heavily in that contest, which I liked. It's one of the things that drew me to 8th edition all that time ago when I joined, was that any person in 8th edition can do anything. Like with enough sixes, you can do anything in the game. And I think that's quite nice to mimic in the best painted, which is you don't need to have the best army. If you just have a really cool giant and you spend some time on it, that award's as good as yours.
I loved it because I fall into that category of I just want to paint volume and get it on the table because I've got absolutely loads. And I was able to paint my Marauder Giant, which was fantastic. And I did checks on it. It's the first time I've ever gone to that level of detail. So it did inspire me to try and up my game a bit.
And there you are, best painted, best in race beast for you.
I was going to say not best painted.
So that's kind of why we did that. I think best in race is also a fantastic trophy to keep. We didn't have enough races represented for every best in race, so 2 people were unrepresented. So the trophies have still got on the shelf back here. But I think the best in race, Ogres was one, and Lizardman I think was the other one. Was uncontested. Because that again, like the ranking, is something to strive for. If I'm not getting first place, but there's 2 or 3 other Ogre players here, like I can be best in race. Like I can get 15th and beat the next Ogre player. So I think the best in race stuff is that your Beastman trophy again.
Yeah. I sent some photos to Simon of the event which I took. So
yeah, I've just got a couple of photos here just to whiz through quickly, but I like the symbol of the Thundercock. Did you draw that, Alex? Or something? Do you know who drew it?
No, this is 2013, 2014. We paid a guy called Roger Barnett, who also played 8th edition at the time, who's a graphic designer by trade, to come up with the logo. And the brief was, we just have the name Thundercock, and we don't really have anything else. And he was like, let me whack this up for you. And he called the character Brutus, as in like the gladiatorial. And it was a one-shot, back of the net first draft. He was like, what do you think? I was like, that's absolutely insane. And he became our logo. The brief when we were talking about it was, I wanted like the RAF art, the World War II fighting spirit on the front of the Spitfires. That's the kind of style I want. And he came up with this like rippling biceps Thundercock. But yeah, you see the 2 giants going against each other there. You've got the Beastman giant heading up against the other undead giant.
I just love how Mark takes this brick of like 60 gore.
Get a backup brick. you had the brick of gore and you had the backup brick with more gore as well, which
Look
was
at that.
yeah. But yeah, giants line up against each other is kind of what it's about.
I thought you'd like that shot, Simon. I thought this one might be. It just looked like we'd
That's
set it up for photos.
yeah.
And that's one of Ian's.
Look at you being gamey with your Furies blocking the charge. Look at you chaffing units,
Of course
Mark.
I am. Yeah. You have to learn to use chaff with Beastman. It's all you've got.
I love how
So the
how Ian's got the
look
ethereal characters at the front of those zombies. It looks pretty cool.
so the all we managed to do the success we had from the eighth edition. We sent out some feedback from the first Thundercock event in February, and the resounding feedback we got was almost exclusively positive on a lot of changes. They didn't like the food as much, they didn't like the venue as much, but the actual core of the tournament they loved. So we've done a different venue, we've got a new caterer set up for the food, and all we've done this year is just fine tune what the compact looks like with regards to some of the colors and adding some of those rules in that make it a little bit different. So things like Skaven characters can ride giant pox rats. They can't normally, but that's a nice thing that I don't think is massively game breaking. Things like dwarfs having triple march, again, not massively game breaking, but it's enough of a small change to keep things, I think, a bit interesting.
Oh, that was a horrendous deployment. That was the two boxes either side.
Yeah, what happened there? So you've got one brick in front of the other.
Yeah, it was bad deployment by me, and it's not surprising that Mr. Wrightson 20 nailed me in short order. He just tore through one unit, tore through the other. It was the quickest game I think I've played in a long time.
So one of the things that we've put into the Thundercock Compact, and I'm very pleased to see is being picked up by Adam for the Cardiff Compact, is standardized battle maps per table. And that was something that I picked up from the ETC, which was in the game, your deployment, your terrain is fixed before you get to the table. So everyone, when they're playing round one, is playing on the same table. The terrain is in exactly the same place. The layout of the table is identical because that way you have no advantage over whether you're playing on table one, table five, table seven. There's no tactical advantage in the terrain. Everyone has the same terrain and everyone has the same deployment. Yeah, well, because we've all had that frustration where we're playing on a table and the terrain doesn't match or doesn't feel fair in comparison to some of the other tables that exist that are around the table. So whether you're a Wood Elf player and there's no woods on your table, and the frustration is there's 10 on that Tomb King player's table. I don't have any, like this, it doesn't feel fair and balanced. So everyone has a standard map now. The deployment's nice and similar, and it means there's a lot more fairness against the rules, I think.
And so these are the missions.
These are the missions.
Yeah.
Yeah. So your score at the end of the game is worked out on a 20-0 system. Regardless of objective, it's 20-0 is the score. And then in addition to that, you get 1 point if you remained Fortitude. So your Fortitude score is 3. So providing you have 3 banners, your general counts as 2, your battle standard counts as 1. Providing that your Fortitude is at least 3, you get a point. If your opponent's Fortitude is broken, you get another point, and you can get up to 3 points for getting your secret mission. So each game has a maximum of 25 points you can get. So at the start of the game, you pick one of these missions. They can only ever be used once, but you secretly pick your mission card, you put it down the table, and your opponent doesn't know what you're trying to fight for. So assassination is, I can kill, the general just needs to be removed. You look down at raise the flag. I have to have 1 scoring unit with Fortitude within 6 inches of the table, own at least 2 table quarters, have enemy units destroyed. Actually, it means that if you're going into a game and the matchup feels quite tough, you can still pick a mission that is beneficial for you or quite easy to get. And if you kind of keep your Fortitude, you can leave there with some points. So if I'm playing into a horrible matchup for me and I don't think I've got much of a fight, I can pick double agent, and if they get their mission, I get mine. And I'll keep my Fortitude back in the corner. And I've actually kind of got 4 points already, which is a lot in the grand scheme of things, but it's only 20-0 per game. Keeping those 4 or 5 points extra is actually quite a big deal.
I loved it. That was my favorite part of it. Was all the missions.
It's also cool picking it as well. You pick a mission and then you play your opponent, and they're like, "I've got a no ward save prince on a dragon as my general." And I go, "Oh, I've already picked the kill the general one. This would be perfect for that right now. I'm gonna pick hold out instead." So I think that's quite cool. Some of the missions I think need a little bit of balancing in how fair they are. For example, breaking your opponent's Fortitude while retaining your own is quite tough to do in comparison to just having 2 table quarters. So it's a bit of thinking between what mission you want to do, and some are harder than others.
I like this double agent one. Yeah, so if your opponent's completed theirs, then you complete yours. Yeah.
Yeah,
Unless they pick double agent.
Yeah.
If you both pick double agent, no one
no
gets
one
it.
gets it.
And your spies have backfired, which I think it happened one time to my knowledge at the event, which was both people pick double agent, turn the card up, then they're both like, wow. Like, I really thought you would kill general. Like, why didn't you get it, sort of thing?
The double agent was excellent for when you're facing someone who you just go, I don't have a clue what I'm going to do.
And picking them once and only limiting to once meant there was a lot more fun behind. You couldn't just always pick double agent, for example, or you couldn't always pick kill the general. You had to change it up.
And it was nice that you actually produced all the little cards for us to take as well.
They'll be back. They'll be back this year as well.
Good stuff.
The Manifest Award.
Yeah.
So this is a new award alongside Best Painted for this year's Thundercock event. Best Painted is still a giant. You only get points for giant. Only bring a Best Painted giant. The Best Army Manifest is the best produced list on the day. So you still submit normally via email ahead of time with the deadlines that are required. But the themed list you submit on the day and physically give to me, we will put up for voting as well. If you're a dwarf player and you want a polystyrene slab, carve it in stone and give me that, fine. This was an event, a theme that I think the Eatbats guys did at one of their events a long time ago, before Ninth Age. And a guy had in his list on hide, he had the hide of an animal that he was like a taxidermist, and he wrote the list on the back of and he gave like a rolled up hide to the army, which is incredible. Like, that's so cool.
Right,
So
I'm writing it on the back of my son and presenting you with my son.
But I like how you've put on the third paragraph here. Submitting a creative army list is worth 10 tournament points. If tournament organizers reserve the right to award fewer than 10 TPs if a submission is considered low effort, AI generated, or does not demonstrate a genuine creative attempt. So in other words, we've all got extra homework.
This is the forcing people to take the giant. It's 10 tournament points to not do this. Like, do you really want to put yourself at that much of a disadvantage? If you're not that creative inclined and you just want to write it on a bit of paper, tea soak the paper, make it like a scroll and rip the edges, that's fine. That's effort. You tried to play the game. I get it. We all have lives. That's 15 minutes worth of work and you can get it done. If you want to really go ahead of it, at one of the last Squid Conference, Jamie Bradbury made a chalice of chaos, a literal goblet of chaos he presented for Best Painted. I'm thinking that is such a cool way to present a list to someone. You can have like wax seals on it, feathers on the paper. That the world is open to however you want to interpret submitting a list to me. What I don't want is AI slop, and what I don't want is people to not do it. So if you don't want to do it, you want to take the 10-point hit, take the 10-point hit. But I want everyone to produce something creative to emphasize their list, which is alongside Best Painted. So it's not getting rid of Best Painted. It's just something different, which I think is exciting and new and creative. I'm a competitive gamer, but I'm a hobby hero at my heart. I love converting the units in the story. And if I was taking ogres, writing in like backwards E crayon on paper, like, I think that's quite a cool way to submit a list. So
I could tell you how I would do it. And it wouldn't necessarily be fancy because art is not my thing, hence I'm shit at painting. But I would incorporate it into my normal story of the general picking the units from the hold or whatever it is.
Some Bray Shaman's recount of events as he lists the units that went up to war. Yeah. There's loads of stuff I think you can do with it, and I think it's just trying to encourage that creativity in it. And it's something different again. If it's a flop this year, it won't be back. But I think we're at a safe place now with 8th edition, where we can try stuff and we can start experimenting with things. Like when we say Ban of the World Dragon now actually is only applicable against wounds done by your enemy. Okay, well, that's different. Let's see if it works. And if it doesn't, we'll change it back. No 50% Lords and Heroes. Does it work? Okay, no, let's change it back. And I think we're at a fun spot where there's enough events that if you change one thing, it's not this massive ripple effect onto everything else.
So did you change your comp much on the reds and ambers between events?
Most of it was similar. And the spoiler to those who are listening to this and haven't written their lists yet, there are some green choices we put in, not because they're particularly competitive at all, but because we wanted people to think why is that a green choice? Like, what am I missing here? Why is that good? So something like the third Bretonian vow or something is a green choice, and I wanted people to be like, why? What's the secret
missed?
sauce people are seeing? So there are a couple of red herrings in there that I decided to leave
You
in,
bastard.
but most of it is just tightening up the rules and to make sure it's fit for it. What's quite good is the people who've helped me go through the compacts. I've got Warren, I've got Daly, I've got Adam, Mike, and Harry who've go through the list with me. They all play almost every army between that bundle, so they just weren't allowed to write the comp for their own army because you'd write it favorably for your own army. So you could write the comp for anyone else's army, you just couldn't write it for your own. And then we got together on the giant Zoom call, and it took hours to do. But we sat down and we went through every army and we said, is this red? Is this not red? Is this not red? And then we adjusted it ever so slightly to where it was. So
let's be honest, they're so competitive that if one of them had tried to sneak it in, the other one would have.
there was lots of I don't think that's a red choice, and it was like no, it's absolutely a red choice. So I won't name names. We had a lot of people trying to talk their choice up to a red because they knew they were going to be full on ambers.
Yeah.
So they were like, I think that is a red choice. I think that's really bad. No. Put it back in the orange bucket. You've got to choose like everyone else. So yeah, not a lot of massive changes. I think the changing was above that, more the army restrictions. So things like Jabberslythes, Gorgons, 200 points. I think that's a fair change to make at this point.
Yeah.
Things like Battle Standard Bearers have 50 points worth of magic items they can take, or they can take a magical banner. In this comp pack, I'm saying if the magical banner you're taking is less than 50 points, you can take the difference in magical items. So if I want to take a 15-point magic banner, I can still take 35 points of magic items, which isn't normally allowed. It's not how the rules work, but it's a change for this event, and I think that's interesting and worth a try.
Yeah.
We've also put in a comp pack to say there's 6 war machines or war machine style shooting per army. And some war machines count as more than one. So Hell Cannon, for example, is 2 for the purpose of this. The Steam Tank is 2 for this purpose as well. So it's designed to say there is more stuff that should and shouldn't be taken. And I think it's just those little things that are trying to change the way that compact's written. And some stuff moved from green to amber and vice versa. But actually, the best thing I can do at the minute is look at your guys' event, to look at the Cardiff events, and use that data to say what is the recurring item that kind of keeps coming up. So things like Talisman of Preservation, Enchanted Shield are always coming up. So maybe they need to be a green if they're always being taken. Maybe. The laws that are always being taken, do they need to be looked at? Maybe. And with that data, you can kind of build what you think the compact should look like.
So any other changes then from last year? So it was a couple of weeks till list submission, right? Like 2-3 weeks?
List submission is the end of this month. So 2 weeks till end of the submission. And then the event is the 19th and 20th of September. So the list will be released ahead of time, first week of August. First week of September. Rounds will be done at that point as well. But at that point, that's when lists are locked in. So 2 weeks to finalize your choices.
Last question from me. I know Mike won the last event, is that right? With his dark ones.
He didn't do.
At London Legends, I believe he was on like a -7 comp.
He was indeed.
Is it that same list? Is now a +5 on your comp, or is it like a change list?
No, there's more concessions that need to be made to get it into the compact. There is. Mike is a unicorn to Warhammer 8th Zone, whereas he has very tactfully found a list that plays outside of the rules of most other ways that people like to play lists. It's very competitive, and it's a very frustrating list to play against if you don't have the tools to deal with it. So Mike has he's his own worst enemy, that he's made this list that everyone hates. TOs hate it because players grumble about it. Players hate it because they play it all the time. So he's his own worst enemy. This list is very competitive, and no one likes playing against it. So the natural response to that is it's comp to oblivion in every comp pack. And Thundercock is unfortunately no different. This style is comp, Warlocks are comp, Dark Riders, everything. You just look at Mike's list from top to bottom and go, what is he taking? How do I comp it? So
Well, I think it was him and Warren basically signed almost the death knell of the fast cav, isn't it?
They did, didn't they? And I like that compacts don't move quick enough for that to happen regularly. Mike has consistently placed high every event that he's been to with Dark Elves. So I think the comp on them is warranted. What I would hate to do is there be one event where Empire suddenly stand out and the hammer gets brought down on them and they're comp to oblivion. I think you need consistency to prove there's something wrong with it. And there's not. I think it's just that it's frustrating to play against. If it wasn't annoying to play against, it doesn't matter how much it wins. It's just there are a lot of people play against and go, I have no idea how to beat this. It doesn't help he's a smart player. It doesn't help he's very clever, and this is annoying. That combination together is this perfect part of not very good.
Yeah, definitely. It's those avoidance lists where as soon as you point towards it, they just disappears, and you can never get to grips with it. It's frustrating. In a similar way, like a gun line can be frustrating because you're losing your models in turn 1, turn 2, and then you've got to try and claw your way back into the game at turn 4 and 5, sort of thing. You know,
it makes you a better general, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, look, as long as the way I look at it is as long as the pack has ways which incentivize you. So, for example, a gun line, you need to have some missions that will incentivize you to come out of your deployment zone, which means that you can't play a gun line in all 5 games, very successfully. For avoidance, you need some missions where it's like, a central objective where you need to put your units in the middle of the table, for example, forcing the avoidance list to come and fight. Basically, you need some missions to make the avoidance list on the gun lines not that effective in every game.
I think that was something I learned from one of your very first London Legends events, where I took what was my 9th edition ETC list to one of your events. It was the War Altar. It was Empire. It was the Arch-Electron War Altar. It was a level 4 on light, 2 level 1s on light, giant block of halberdiers, 2 cannons, 2 steam tanks, demigryphs, and I was like, this is great because I'm going to feed you cannons all game. I'm going to banish you off the face of the earth. This is going to be, I'm going to have so much fun. I'm going to win this event. I won every game about 12 because, like I said earlier, I get 15-5 worth objective, but 15-5 worth of kills, but I'd never get the objective because I built this little fort in the corner. So every game became actually a 12-8 win. And when you look at 5 12-8 wins, that actually doesn't get you very far at a tournament. That does barely get you kind of top 10. So you look at that and you go, this list actually doesn't win events. Like, I can't play this style of list where I just sit in the corner and just banish people to face the earth. I need to play something different. And I think that is exactly what you're talking about, Simon. Encouraging people to come out of a corner and not just be this like static, unfun to play list, I think is really good for the game.
Brilliant. All right. So any runners and riders you want to talk about? Anyone to watch? I suppose we've got to wait till the list come in, haven't we, before we get into that conversation. But
so I would do the list. And last year, me and Jack got together on the Thundercock Twitter, and we did a podcast where we reviewed the list from kind of top to bottom. We'll do something similar again this year, where we talk about the list from start to finish. But there's already the questions I'm getting asked are really getting me thinking about what some of the lists that can be taken. Chris the other day was asking, can a cavalry character join a chariot unit? And I'm like, what are you cooking? Like, what list are you trying to write where characters on chariots are joining horsemen units? And when people say you're compact on flying characters in warriors, I assume that's demons and discs of each, but is a dragon a green choice? I'm like, no. Are you taking a dragon? Like, what? So it's actually quite interesting to see the kind of
cavalry characters make a unit.
That blew my mind when I learned that the other day. But when people go, am I reading this right? Is this a red? And I go, oh, actually, no, that's not a red. And they're like, oh, great, thanks. They go, oh, hold on, maybe it should be a red. So yeah, the list will come out. We'll do a podcast on that. We'll talk about what the list look like. And yeah, that'll be when I think some real runners and riders come out of that list.
All I know is that I've got like 4 weeks to paint a giant, and during that time I've got like 2 old world events, and I've got to make this bloody army manifest now. Damn.
You're heading to it then, Simon. I didn't realize you were going to it.
I'm going, yeah.
No, I can't make this one, unfortunately. So
you're there, and I think Luke's there from your lot as well. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see. Yeah, the manifest, worst case scenario, night before, T-Soaker list and write, give all your characters names, and that's 10 points. But I really want to see some exciting stuff. I really think there's an opportunity here to do something quite cool. And not everyone will do something amazing and stand out. That's not the point. The point is for the 10 people who go who really want to do something sick, this is a platform to reward that kind of style of thinking.
Simon, give it to your boys and then play on his heartstrings if he doesn't give you something good.
I think I've got a what's the word? Calligraphy quill pen.
Oh yeah. Nice quilting. So the prizes for this year we've done a little bit different. I won't spoil too much, but we've steered massively away from like trophies as prizes now. So all the prizes are a lot more bespoke, themed. The budget has remained the same on them, but they're a lot more. They're away from trophy. Not, I mean, I've got a shelf back there which is covered with trophies, and all they do is they sit here and collect dust. What I really want is something that's a bit more practical that you can have. So yeah, the trophies are going to be quite interesting as
So
well.
you haven't got the Thundercock's first place trophy, which lights up. That was
No, we haven't
genius.
got. We've moved away from the Thunderbolt from last year. That I think was a miss of an idea. If anyone else had won it, I'd have felt bad because Mike won it. I was like, actually, I don't mind you win. You win this.
Brilliant.
Awesome. Right then. And then where can people find you on the? Oh yeah, there's the War Boss Weekly YouTube. I'll put a link to that.
Yeah,
And for the
so that's and so I'm Warboss Weekly on YouTube and on Twitter I'm a Thundercock and the Thundercocks are also Twitter as well. So what I'll do is all the socials connect to each other. So the rankings connects to the Facebook, connects to the YouTube. So you find one, you should be able to find them all.
And the thundercocksranking.com.
Thundercockrankings.com. We are in the process of making a new website which has fixed a lot of the teething issues from before. So now it shows every event. You can search your name. It's got a little type bar. You search your name, brings up all your events. It's got the European list in it. You can see everyone who's competing for your best in races, best in race. It's a whole new website that should be out before we do the new event. And I think it's really going to be, it's a real step up from the last one. If you thought the last Thundercock rankings was cool, this one is like heroin. This one is fucking amazing.
I need to look at that actually before I decide which army I'm going to bring. I have no idea which army I'm going to bring in.
I tell you what, that's such a crazy thing that I've had people talk to me about. So Harry Lacey, the guy who comes with us to the events, he was like, "Man, I really want to do well to get my big ranking score number up. But actually, if I take Chaos Dwarves and not a lot of other people take it, I can get a best in race." And it's really driving his decision on what army to take. Is will it move my rankings up? Can I get best in race? Will I lose my best in race if I do this? So it's actually really cool to factor into that.
It is true. I wasn't going to take Beastman at our own event just for the swing army, but I ended up doing it in the end because I just wanted to get a better rating.
The competition at the top now is so incredibly tight. So Luke is number one with something like 267 points. And then there's Mike with 265 points. And then there's me with 261 points. Like there's honestly about 10 points in the top 5 places in the rankings. So it's really easy for someone to come in, smash a score and get top 10, top 5, even top 3. Which I think is good for the game. It's healthy competition, isn't it? It's good. It's things like when Jonathan Gardner got best in race high elf after wearing that title unofficially for so long. That I think rivaled his firstborn child in feeling because he's told everyone about how he's the best in race high elf. And I hesitate to say if you mention a high elf strategy around him, you get a tut of the finger and we'll consult the best high elf before battle. And like that's cool. Like I'm incredibly proud that he wears that as a badge of honor, and I think more people should wear that. So yeah, head on to the rankings. It's thundercockrankings.com. It's got all the events on there. New events we post on there. So your event details we post on there, as well as Cardiff, as well as Thundercock events, as well as the rankings. They're European, like I said earlier. We've got 4 or 5 results from Germany, Dallasag, Sweden in there as well. So now we're competing internationally as well for best in race. So the competition is really heating up, and I think it's really good for the community.
Good, yeah, good to see the 8th Ed community growing once again.
We've got to be kind of the footholders of that. I think people like you guys at London Legends, I think what Adam Bass is doing in Cardiff, we need to be the ones pushing and keeping this kind of going in the right direction. So us not changing comps massively one way or the other and us encouraging new people to kind of join is what's keeping this hobby alive. We're at that kindling campfire stage where we're just softly getting the embers to come good. And with the way Old World's going and with the way the rest of the hobbies are going, I think we can see some more people come into events. There's still names coming to the Thundercock event of players I've never met before. I had a guy message Luke on Facebook to get in touch with me who says, I can't make the Thundercock event in September. Can I buy a ticket for the February one next year? And I've never heard of this guy in my life, but he's booking for next year's Thundercock event. That's how much he wants to get in it.
Right.
So there are people who come to London all the time who fly internationally to go. You had a whole award around aviation last time, people who came in from abroad. So I think the fact we're attracting these people and that there's always new people at tournament is only a good thing for us.
Plenty of time to grow your moustache.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think I might have lost hair while on this podcast, so I need to go put some regain on it or something to get it going.
Alex, you'll be there in your Thundercock costume, yeah?
Yeah, well, I've got the shirt which I wore in the last video we did, which is medium. I haven't been a medium in a long time, so if I wear that shirt in this heat, I might pass out.
You were
So
just
I think
looking
it's time we get
butch.
some more merch. Yeah, that's all it was. Strategy just looked good for the camera.